David Uosikkinen is in the Pocket is sponsored by the School of Rock Main Line. I'd like to thank the School of Rock Main Line, located at 511 Old Lancaster Road in Berwyn. You can visit their website at schoolofrock.com. Ask for Dave Marsh or Rick Allison.
Hey, everybody, I'm Andy Weinberg, and welcome to episode 128 of the David Uosikkinen in the Pocket podcast. Good to have the whole gang back. Fred, good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Fred, hey. And, of course, Dave is here. You look good, Dave. You look,
Thank you.
This is new, right?
Rested. Oh, yeah. Well,
hair.
I shaved it off, and it's coming back again. I had it over for a while, so it's on its way back. Thank you. I was just copying you, Andy.
There you go.
I like it.
So let's not waste any time. We'll get right to our guest.
Yes.
And it's actually a repeat. I am so glad, Dave, when you told me that we were having Jimmy Paxson back on the podcast.
He's the best.
It was one of my favorite episodes we did way back episode 61, right before COVID, actually.
Right.
So that's when we had Jimmy on. But let's welcome him back. One of the greatest drummers in the world, the great Jimmy Paxson, who's joining us from LA in his car.
Boom, baby.
Oh,
hey, brother.
Whiz-wit.
How are you, man?
Man, things are cool. How you doing? You guys good?
Yeah, we can't complain. I mean, I guess we could. We were actually complaining a little while before he came on, but that's another story, and we could really go down that rabbit hole. But we're not going to, because we want to keep it positive for now. But all is good here, man, and it's great to see you, man. I mean, like,
thank you.
You know, following you on social media and seeing everything you're doing. And Andy mentioned that we had you on. You know, I didn't realize it until Andy mentioned this, that you were with us. You might have been the guest right before COVID shut down. You know,
it was February of 2020. We had right before.
Wow,
we were about to go on tour with the Dixie Chicks, which obviously the tour didn't happen.
Yeah, the Chicks.
I remember we played on the Ellen show.
Yeah,
we were supposed to do Colbert the next day, and it was 7 a.m. lobby call, and the band leader called me at 6 and said, "Hey man, we're not going. There's that virus thing is they're shutting." He said nobody knows, but they're shutting down New York at 3 o'clock. But we'll probably get back to it in a month, is what he said.
2 years later.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah,
right?
It was rough. I mean, thank God, you know, in the case of them, I mean, they had tour insurance, so it took forever, but like deep into that pandemic, when there was like, it was really like lean times.
Yeah,
like luckily we all ended up getting like some rescue money for the end of the tour, which, I mean, not to be too candid about it, but from what I heard from management, they usually didn't get tour insurance, but that particular tour, the management they had at the time insisted that they got it.
Wow,
well, that's
which,
smart.
You know, man, what a mess. I mean, I felt like the pandemic itself like turned into, I'd say the positive of it was it turned into like 2 years of learning how to like engineer for myself and record drums. I mean, I moved my studio a few times.
Yeah.
People were like deadlining. They needed to get stuff done. I was getting tips. Like I was getting more money than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I would just immediately, if you could find it, you know, I'd buy another microphone or I'd buy another preamp to like just improve the conditions of working.
I remember that. I remember watching you do that because you put a lot of that on. You were putting a lot of that on social media. I remember watching you do that because Freddie was doing the same thing. I was doing the same thing, and you know, I wasn't leaving my house, and got a lot done. I spent a lot of money on microphones, as you said, mic pre's. And, you know.
Yeah, and I learned how to do a lot of stuff. I mean, it's funny because the thing went on so long that I felt like I actually started calling the beginning of the pandemic vintage COVID. Like, remember vintage COVID? Like when all we did was like, this will be over next week. We got time off, and you know, you'd watch movies and drink, which I don't drink anymore. But I mean, at the time, it was like, you know, that was, you know, playing Yahtzee and drinking with whoever, you know, was in your immediate circle, man.
Right. Were you living in Oklahoma when we did that last time?
I was, yeah.
Yeah,
that came to an end. And now I'm in Austin. But the irony of it is, like, the time
wow.
I was headed back to LA, but like some friends that live in Austin really were supportive and leaned on me to go there. One guy in particular worked for Edie Brickell and Paul Simon, and this guy Kyle Crusham. He's a big producer, and he's like, "Man, move here, we'll work."
Yeah.
And I looked into it. There was a house there for rent that has the garage was already soundproof. The guy the composer from Stranger Things did the first 3 seasons in that garage. So I just moved my entire studio. I had my friend come out and hang all the paneling and all that stuff, and I can play out there all night. But the weird thing is, other than the sessions I get with Kyle, or like I'm playing with Ian Moore now, and I do some gigs around town. Other than that, I'd say since April, which is when I got there, I've been in LA all but 12 weeks. You know, like I've been in Austin 12 weeks of all these months.
Wow.
I mean,
Crazy.
and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that people in LA still give a damn, because like this is the first year that I've, you know, when you hit me up to do this, thank you for that. I mean, like this is actually the first year that I've not been on tour, just because none of the people I work with are touring.
Yeah.
And in a long time. And it's like I'm coming up on 12 months of it, man. And it's like it's kind of like you're running into me like on like, I don't know, some kind of fucking doomsday or something. Like, how you doing, man? I'm all right. I got a bar gig and a session, and you know, it's like my grandfather used to say, like, you know, the business could sort of be like a tailor that makes pants out of patches.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what this year is. But you know, you gotta trust it, man, because you know, I just went in the Vons to like get a coffee, and you know, you could go in there and run into some guy, and he's like, oh, like for instance, man, I just saw fucking Skip that I played. Wow, that's weird. There he goes.
He's walking.
The organ player that plays with Johnny Rivers when I did that gig just drove by me. He actually told me one of the greatest jokes ever.
You can tell it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, his description of John was like, he's a different kind of guy. But his joke was, why do accordion players walk around when they play?
Well, why?
To
I love
away
this.
from their sound.
Freddie, we're gonna tell Rob that's a going for Rob. Boom, boom.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
You know, you still got a lot of accordion players in that area, in like Philly, Jersey.
Yeah, well, they got that great. There's that store, that store on 9th Street in South Philly.
Yeah.
That, you know, guys got all the. I think it's still there. It's near
It's near
Ralph's.
South Street.
Ralph's. Yeah, by Ralph's,
Man,
the Italian, the longest living Italian restaurant there.
Oh, Ralph's. Yeah, I'm dying to eat there.
Yeah.
I've never eaten here. You know what's
Oh, Jimmy,
really
when you come to town, I'll take you.
Please, let's go. I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at they gave their recipe up on the internet, and I thought, geez, it's so weird. Like, my family, the Italian side of my family, is from that neighborhood. I'm like, they probably all talked. You know, I got a theory on the Jersey tomato too.
Oh yeah, it's very special. Special tomato,
I think that because
man.
so many Italian people, right, came to that region. I think that many of them probably put the seeds in their pocket, you know, and like brought the seeds with them and planted them in that region, because I can't put together a reason why that tomato is so great. Superior to anywhere other than Italy. So I just, and like my family, the Italian side of my family back there, they used to stuff peppers with sardines, you know, and bread, and like this. It was like a meatball mixture with no cheese and sardines. And I was playing with this girl. It's so good. I'll make them for you, man. We got to get together.
Great.
Like, I was in an area of Italy with this girl named Lady Blackbird playing some gigs. And
I know.
And they came out, and it's like they bring these stuffed peppers, and I'm looking at them, and I'm going, wow, looks like what my great grandmother made. And then, you know, I'm putting it together. I'm going, this must be where she's from, because I've never seen one like that. But it's like, you know, you start. And also, first time I went to Italy, I was like, wow, finally a tomato that contends with New Jersey. You know, of course, I didn't tell them. I mean, I wouldn't be here right now, but
But yeah, you know what the beautiful thing? I was just going to say, the beautiful thing about having you, Jimmy, on a podcast, You can go from talking about touring during COVID to tomatoes in New Jersey in like 3 minutes without taking a breath.
And it's
And it makes
beautiful.
it's like a perfect segue.
Makes sense.
Just wind you up and let you go, Mel.
And the wild thing about him talking about these tomatoes is that I was just watching. Dallin and I were watching a program yesterday. A guy was doing I guess it was a class on making pizzas. He's like a world renowned pizza maker. She knows who it is, but he was talking. He pulls out this can. It was Jersey tomatoes. He said, "These are the best."
They're
just
the best
yesterday,
tomatoes.
the best. Yeah, man.
Really, like what? And it's funny because when you run into people that are from that area, like there's a singer. She's married to the drummer from Kings of Leon. I don't know if you've had him on here, but she's a great singer named Jessie Balin. She had like a big record deal, like, and she's in Nashville now, but she was like a big thing in LA even before she got signed. And I started talking to her one day. I saw her at a gig, and she's like, "Oh, I know you. You know, your brother played on my recordings." I had no idea. I just walked up to her to tell her she was great. And we started talking about food like immediately. Like she's from New Jersey. She's sending me like she had a photo rather online of these tomatoes in a pot with an onion in there and some butter. And I'm like, "What's that?" And she says, "Oh, you got to try this." She says, "It's just tomato, butter, and onion. It's Marsala Hazan's butter onion sauce. You throw the onion in the trash."
Wow.
And so I did it. Next thing you know, it becomes like this trendy thing. And when I did it, there's a Canner's Deli in LA.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So there's a jam session that happens, and Alex, the percussionist, is like a serious chef. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I went in that night to play, and I'm setting up, and I said, "Man, I made this tomato sauce. I got to tell you, it's from this lady. I don't know if you've heard of her, Marsala Hazan." And he's like, "Heard of her? I worked with her. He was like her sous chef or something."
Wow.
But there's so much in food and music that go together. Like my nickname is Snackson. I was on the road, like when I first met Ben Harper, and like I had I would show up at the airport with these guys, and my bag would have, it was like, I think it was Natalie Maine's solo band, and Ben was in it. And I would like, "Yeah, you guys want," and I'd open my bag and I'd have all this stuff. "Oh, you got to try these chips. Oh man, these nuts, like whatever." And one dude goes like, "Man, you're not Paxson, you're Snackson."
Snackson.
And
that's good.
The crew, like they changed my road cases to say Snackson, like about.
That's beautiful, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean thanks, man. Like same like gig wise, like Joe Sample, like. Yeah. He was like my food spirit animal. Like
Joe was into food.
"Now, Jimmy, we're gonna go to this restaurant tonight, and they have sand dabs, and that's the fish that the fucking Rat Pack ate, and nobody knows how to make that shit anymore. We're going, and he was gonna. "No, we're gonna go to this place with this pasta, and it was heavy because I don't know. You know the collard green story?
No.
Do tell.
Right.
No, but I want to hear it.
Okay. All right. So a girl I used to go out with was a songwriter, and this is so long ago, like, geez, I want to say it might have been around 07 or something. And she's like, "Hey, I'm in this, this workshop, and this girl that I'm in there with is real cool. Her name's Corey, and she's having a Christmas party, and she wants us to come, and I offered to cook something." She offered that I would cook something because I cook a lot. And I go, "All right, well, what did you offer for me to cook?" And she goes, "Collard greens." I mean, she obviously read her the list, like, meatballs, broccioli, collard greens. And she said, "Okay, make greens." Yeah. So I go, "All right, find out how many people, and if pork is cool and all that." It turns out it's 30 people. So it's the hour before. Now, 30 collard greens for 30 people is a lot of greens. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I got 2 pots going, and I'm going to combine them when they reduce. And she comes running out in like the hour before we have to leave. And she goes, "Hey, you're not going to believe this." I go, "What?" She goes, "Corey's father is Bill Withers." I go, "Is he going to be at this party?" She goes, "Yeah, it's at his house." And I go, I'm making collard greens for Bill Withers. And I get there, and the food is like exquisite. Like it's like a soul food restaurant for Christmas dinner. And I tell her, look for a back door in this house because if these greens don't make it, like we're gonna ghost. Like we gotta get out of here.
I'm out here.
So everybody's eating these greens, and I mean, there's people there that I recognize. There's like,
wow,
Phil Upchurch is there. Like,
wow,
everybody's there, and like,
wow.
my hair at the time, it's not in a hat, and it's out to here, and
yeah.
I look like I got, like glowing in the dark, electrocuted or something. My hair was, like this giant hair.
Wild.
And
yeah,
so, like,
I remember that.
Everybody's eating, and I'm like, I hear everybody, who made the greens? Who made the greens, right? And Corey goes, Jimmy made the greens. I go, who's Jimmy? And I raise my hand, and there's kind of like this, like, huh? And Bill like walks over. He goes, Jimmy? I go, yeah. He goes, stand up. And I go, all right. He goes, you made these greens? And I go, yep. And he goes, all by yourself? I go, yep. He goes, you didn't get no help? I said, nope. And he goes, well, Jimmy, and he grabs me around my shoulder, and he goes, from now on, you are an honorary black man. And the whole room goes into this like riot, and I'm turning red because I'm like, it's, I'm outgoing, but it's kind of a shy moment, and it's a funny joke, especially coming from him.
Yeah.
And, for years after that, every year, like for 3 years or something, 3 or 4 years, I got the call from his wife, like, "Hey, Bill wants you to come over and bring the greens."
No way.
And
wow.
and I didn't see him, after that, and eventually when he passed away, it dawned on me, like, this guy did not know me as a drummer. He didn't know me as like, oh yeah, man, he's got a good sound, or he's got a pocket, To him, I was just Jimmy that made the greens,
Right.
which is kind of cool.
Really cool.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I remember telling Joe Sample that story, and he was like, because Joe would make this barbecue that he got the sauce recipe from Stix Hooper. Stix Hooper's father.
Yeah.
And he's like, Jimmy, Mr. Hooper used to make these sandwiches and sell them over the fence in his backyard in Houston and all this. And I went to his house. I remember like feeling, I felt like I better get in contact with anybody. Like, sometimes you play in a town, you leave the town and people get pissed. Why didn't you call?
Right.
And I'm with Cake. I was playing with Keiko Matsui, and I'm like, this friend of mine's so pissed that I didn't call him when we were in wherever we were. I was like, who do we know in Houston? We better check in. It's like an hour and a half from Houston. And I'm like, I know Joe Sample, but I don't really. Before I played with him,
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I love Joe. So we went in a rental car and we drove an hour and a half. And his son Nick was like, oh yeah, he made the barbecue today. You should drive out there. And that barbecue was everything he said it was, like,
wow.
And it's weird. Like, I just saw this whole thing. I've seen it a bunch of times. I revisited this video on Earl Palmer.
Well, I saw you posted that photo the other day.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
You got to see this video because the video makes me cry every time I see it. And like, I kind of put it on to cry, like, and the guy says in there, to hear what he played is one thing, but to go with him to pick out oysters to make this and make that. And it's like, once again, it's like this whole food and music thing.
Sure.
My cousin in New York is shooting a pilot for a show. Well, he's shot the pilot now for a show he's putting together called Baked, where they bring in a mystery strain of weed and the chefs all get high, I don't smoke anymore. So like, but I'm, food brings a lot of shit together.
Oh, no doubt.
Anybody hungry?
No, I had a really nice dinner, an Italian dinner with my with some friends on Saturday night. My old friend Kenny Bernard played drums with Robert Hazard and his wife Donna.
Oh wow!
She's Italian and she made this, meatballs and she had the braciole. You mentioned the braciole. She made the braciole, and you mentioned great. That, like, she was talking about making it, and that was her thing, and. I don't always have it, but it was really great on Saturday night, man. That's good. That's great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, part of the Austin move was a friend of mine. I have a band there with a guy named Noah Litt, and it's called Grackles. It's actually one of my favorite records I've made, like, with some friends. And a grackle is a bird that's all over the Austin area. Like, when I was like, what's a grackle? And he's like, that's the bird that eats your nachos. It's like in being in Ocean City, if you leave your slice, the seagulls,
right. Seagulls grab them. Yeah. Or your lobster roll nowadays.
Yeah. Right. And we do this this record, and he owns a brewery in Austin called Batch, and like he's got a food truck out there, a trailer that's empty with the kitchen. He just put like 50 grand into this kitchen. It's beautiful. And he's like, man, if you want, if you're not going on tour this year, you can make cheesesteaks and meatballs in there.
Wow.
Very generous offer. I wasn't ready to, I'm still, I still feel like going out and playing, but that aspect of this year has been really heavy because, the people I play with, like Lindsey Buckingham's not touring.
Yeah.
The Chicks aren't touring. I haven't done Stevie's gig, since I joined the Chicks. So, it's been like a mixed bag of everything.
Right.
But yeah,
But do you get down to 6th Street much?
In Austin.
In Austin, you get that street. Yeah.
I tend to play more on South Congress. Like.
Oh, right.
I've played like the Continental Club a ton.
Yeah.
I do the happy hour there.
Yeah.
There's this guy named Casper Rawls, and he has a really great band. The bass player is Glenn Fukunaga that played with me with the Chicks in 16, 17. He was actually playing with Lloyd Maines, who's Natalie's father, like when she was born. Like he's Austin.
Wow.
Like he's a fascinating guy because he, aside from being this monster bass player, he's like the world's leading authority in bookbinding.
Whoa.
And like, Smithsonian, like places like that have him do repairs on books that are historical things. So I play with him. Somehow I got hooked up with Ian Moore, which is crazy. He's this like, I don't know if you know much about Ian Moore, but
I don't.
I got hip to him. There's a guy in Oklahoma. There's a guy named Adam Aguilar, and this is funny because like he was playing all these Ian Moore songs in his set, and I thought, I was like, wow, these are good tunes. I wonder what they are. And he's like, the keyboard player was like, those are Ian Moore songs. I'm like, oh, he's like, yeah. He's like, he sounds a lot like Ian Moore, and they're friends. So I met Ian through Adam, and then when I got to Austin, the drummer he had ended up leaving. So I'm doing that, and yeah, it's, man.
Yeah.
It's Austin's an interesting place. You got like I don't know, man. It's weird. I know there's scenes there. I haven't really like the people I'm playing with are. I don't know how to put it. It's a mystery, man. Like,
I found that place. I mean, you're living there. I remember just. Well, I had a lot of friends that, met on the road that, lived there. And Stevie Ray Vaughan, that was, his home.
Yeah.
They have that statue over there. And him and I got, sober together back in the day,
Nice.
So,
kidding.
Man, he was, man, I was on the road. And then one day I got a knock on a door. I was in Dallas, and it was Stevie and my friend Billy Alford, I think Billy still lives in Austin. But I was about 11 months sober at the time, and Billy mentioned something to Stevie. He said, "Oh, I got this friend of mine plays in the Hooters. He's playing in town, and they just happened to be in Dallas, and they surprised it shocked me. Here's Stevie Ray Vaughan at my door.
Right.
I mean, we met because we did some gigs together when the Wax Museum in DC and some stuff like that. So I kind of, I met him before, but, for him to do something with that generous and nice, we drove around his Grand Am, and that night he flew out to do Austin City Limits. He played that show.
Yeah.
Wow. But but those guys, they love Austin, man, and Tones and,
So the guy I mentioned, Ian Moore, when I asked him like recently, I'm like, did you know Stevie Ray Vaughan? He goes, yeah. He goes, he gave me my first guitar. Like, so there's that lineage is there, man. Hey, by the way, like Wednesday will mark 1 year for me of no alcohol. Thursday will
That's
mark
amazing,
1
Jimmy.
year of not even a
Wow.
smoke.
Wow.
I mean, I went, I wasn't an alcoholic. I just went
I get
shit,
it.
and I just decided to stop.
Yeah.
And what's funny is like I really dig it. I dig that anybody can call me at any hour of the day and I'm never drunk, or I'm never high.
Yeah.
I never have a hangover. I get hangovers these days from there's a place I go to called Waltz in Eagle Rock, California. They got hot dogs,
Hey,
pinball machines,
yeah,
There you go.
beer
Yeah.
and wine,
Yeah.
and they have a really good 0.0 beer.
uh-huh.
But the hot dogs, man, again, here we are at the food.
Yeah,
They
it's
look
all
like
right.
a kielbasa, like they're flat on the ends. And I asked the guy, he's like, yeah, we get them. He goes, we get the hot dog is one long length, and we cut them like we got like a miter box to cut the things, right?
Well,
But they're so good, like you eat 2 of them, and you wake up in the morning with a hot dog hangover.
yeah, I get it.
I thought maybe
Yeah.
it's something in the beer that's not the alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
Because so I tried it with like a Coca-Cola, and it was like, no, I still get the fucking salt hangover in the morning.
Yeah.
Nitrates.
The reason
I get
we're
it.
from, we eat like with passion.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We all still do. I mean, it's just something that it's just part of our culture, man. And I love
Thank
it,
God,
man.
right?
Yeah, right.
We know
Absolutely.
better. Like, hey, man, that
Yeah.
doesn't. You don't put that shit on there. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
What do you mean you don't put ketchup on a cheesesteak? I
yeah,
put ketchup on a cheesesteak.
Hey, listen, I'm still appalled when I go to Germany with the Hooters and I see somebody putting mayonnaise on French fries. I'm like, well, I know that's a thing, but that freaks me out. Still, I'm freaked out by it. But
it's weird. It's definitely weird, man. Like, I was in Belgium or something, and they bring out the cone of French fries, and they're like,
yeah,
you want mayo or curry sauce?
and they dump it. It's almost like they take a curry sauce, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. When was the last time you've been to Jersey? Have you been to Jersey? Have you been here in a while?
No, I have to figure out a way, man. I really miss it. I'm an avid fisherman, and
yeah,
I like to fish the surf, and California's great surf fishing. Like lately, people are getting hip to like putting it out there. It used to be less like fishing like knee deep water for surf perch. But I always tell people like I fish with Lenny Castro all the time, and we talk about
Lenny.
this because I took Lenny fishing in Brigantine, and we've gone around Jersey like when we're on tour. Hey man, I put the rod out there. There's a shop in New York. I got a 11-foot surf rod called the CCC rod, the Cape Cod Canal rod, and this big Penn Slammer, $600 on sale. I put it out there. Lenny and I got like these umbrellas set up in these chairs. We're just like leisurely fishing that day. And I look at my phone and he goes, Jimmy, your pole. And I look down and it's laying in the sand like something yanked it out of the rod holder. And I went to pick it up, man. An 11-foot of $600 surf rod shot out into the surf faster than I could grab it.
Oh my God!
Gone.
Wow.
But the story's worth more than the loss. And I just got my old man's. I got my dad's 11-foot surf rod from Jersey.
Wow.
And they wrote on there like Ed Corman from Ocean City. My father used to say, Jim, I think this is the last rod he made. He used to call it the Rest His Soul pole.
Yeah.
So I had a label put on it, and it says Rest His Soul pole, and it has like a hashtag in 08226, like Ocean City,
Yeah.
But hey, I got to tell you, so drumming wise, man, I'm out here I came out here this trip to do some subbing for a drummer named Jamie Tate, who is like one of Erskine's students, another Jersey connection.
Yeah.
And we did the, what's it called? The LA Master Chorale, which is like the vocal version of the LA Philharmonic.
Wow.
With this group Musique, with my best friend forever, Mike Valerio, is like one of the greatest bass players ever, great musician. And it's the Master Chorale with this group called Musique, which was like a 10-piece group with horns and stuff.
Wow.
And we did that at Disney Hall. And then last night we did one at the place called Viviana, which is like the original LA Cathedral. And it was for all the donors to Musique, like the gala.
Yeah.
And we did this entire reworked version of Carole King's Tapestry.
Wow.
Whoa.
And these guys are all schooled in this stuff, and Mike is such a generous spirit. Like, I stay at his house when I'm in LA, and we practiced every day because reading, man.
Yeah.
Freddie, you knew my dad, right?
Yeah, I didn't study with him,
Yeah.
but I went to school there.
If he were around, he'd tell you, man, like the week he tried to teach me how to read when I was a kid was the only week he tried to stop smoking cigarettes.
Great timing.
And there is like a science to when somebody comes at you harshly.
Yeah.
Like the side of the brain gets triggered, and all of a sudden you play worse than you do.
Yeah.
Right,
and like,
sure.
and he always like blamed himself for my lack of reading comprehension. My brother Charlie can read fly shit, like he can read anything,
Wow.
But for me, reading has always been weird. Like Steve Jordan talks about how like the drum notation doesn't show, in drumming you don't have to end the note. You hit a snare drum quarter note, you don't have to mute it afterwards. Like timpani, you have to mute the note. If it says like half note, you gotta boom boom mute it. So I'm here with these people, man, like reading these charts.
Wow.
And it's weird though, man. It works out. Somehow it works out. You shed it enough and you get it.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's this nice synergy of having, the one gig I was subbing was the choral one. The Carole King one, I was the drummer that did the first 3 or 4 shows on it. So they like having me there. But it's weird how the synergy like works out when you have somebody who's not from the theater world back there doing it. And as time goes on, as you rehearse, you start to realize that man, maybe my judgment of like how critical these people that are in the Philharmonic and stuff might be of the fact that I lack in the reading, but like everybody was super supportive.
Super
and
cool.
Come in, and if you come in knowing enough that you can actually find your way and
pull it off,
and then as you do it, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that is what that phrase means right there. Music is this year for me, man. Drumming, everything. Like I was thinking the other day about like when you go in all these different things, like you have to always do like a silent consensus of the room, like to figure it out. Like, okay, so this is what I got to do. This is what I shouldn't do. Okay, like Wada used to yell at me, like, "Hey Paxson, cheer down," like. Why are you so fucking happy for? You know what I mean? And like, and he meant it in a good way. It was sort of half tongue in cheek or whatever. But you gotta like really do it. And this year, because I'm not on the road and it's not like one work situation taking up 80% of my time. Like the dynamics of the different things I'm in, like. I was in one session recently that was the first like hard pain in the ass, like kind of militant vibe session I was on. Like I haven't had one of those where it was like, and I kept my cool, man. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but my mother's Jewish, my father was Italian, Irish, Catholic, right? And I did a gig with Jerry Jamot recently, and we were talking about chanting, And so I'm in there, and this fucking all hell is breaking loose on this record, and I'm in there going like silently in my head, going like Namio Haringi, like chanting to just keep myself level to get through it. And then like you leave that session, I got this call to go like record with this girl Orianthi, who's this great shredder.
Great guitar player. Yeah, I know who she is.
Yep. Yeah. And I get in there with her, and it's like a love fest, and it's sort of like you're coming out of this situation you were just in and into this love fest, and you're like, you feel like what you'd imagine like a fucking abused dog would feel when they get to the house and take care of them. Like, like why all the love, Like, geez, I was just, and it's just been, this has been the nuttiest year, man. Like, I tell you, man, like for playing the drums, it's, Edgar Winter used to, he said to me one time, he goes, well, he was writing me a check. It was the day I got the gig with Stevie Nicks, and I didn't know yet. We were leaving the Poconos in a snowstorm on a prop flight at this little shitty airport. Edgar's writing me a check, and he's going, and he had this manager that wouldn't pay us if the flight
not Charlie.
The manager?
It wasn't Charlie, his manager.
I think it was a guy named Jake Hooker.
Oh, okay.
And the guys in the band were like, well, yeah, Jake, if the flight lands before a certain hour or leaves before a certain hour, you don't get like half days pay.
Oh shit!
For that thing.
He's that guy.
Fucking ridiculous. We're like up at 3 a.m. going to this shitty airport, And he writes me a check, and he goes, well, Jimmy, he goes, the best thing about playing the drums, he goes, is if you stick with it, and he rips the check off. He goes, if you stick with it long enough, you can make hundreds of dollars. And then we land in Philly, like on a layover. And now I have phone service. It's like a flip phone. I didn't even own a computer, and it's a message from Waddy,
Yeah.
Jim, this is Waddy Wachtel.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, but you got the gig. Hope you're not doing anything for the next few months. And
Yeah.
Then I walked to a gift shop. I still had a CD player and bought
Yeah.
like the Max Greatest Hits.
Right.
And then I had to tell Edgar, and I waited a few days. And when I told him, he said, "Well, the only thing that would piss me off is if you didn't take it,
Yeah.
Right on.
So,
Yeah.
but
But you did that for a long. You were out with Stevie for quite a long time, though. You did
11
that
years.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went to,
Shit.
I went to play with the Chicks. I ran into Stevie at a wedding, and she was like, "So when do you
That's
finish?
good.
When do you
That's
when do you
good.
finish with these girls?" And I go, "I finish in October." And she goes, "Okay, great. Well, I was gonna tour this summer, but I decided I'm gonna wait for you." And I went, "Great, thanks, Stevie. I love you." And I thought to myself, "Well, that's the fucking kiss of death right there."
Yeah. Right.
And Marty, the manager, Marty Hom, was like, "Hey, Glenn Fry just passed away. I was talking to Waddy. It might be a good idea to get Scott Crego on the line." And I'm like, whatever. And that's what, they ended up bumping it up to August. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I told them I can make 22 of the 30 rehearsals.
Yeah.
And I can make all of the tour. And the Chicks were willing to pay for me to fly there and work for Stevie on the 22 of the 30 days. I think all they told Stevie, they probably was like, oh, he can't make it. Like they didn't get into the details.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then they had Scott, and then he had to go back to Don Henley, which, he's a friend of mine. And I figured, I didn't, I just said to Waddy, well, sooner or later, he's not going to be able to make it. And then they had Kurt Biscara, who's a friend of mine. And then Kurt had a health. Yeah, I love Kurt.
Is he okay? Is Kurt okay? Is everything good with him?
Yeah, he was fine. He had something go down, and Waddy's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, I was playing with Ben Harper, and we were mastering a record. And I go, I'm in Burbank at this mastering session, and he's like, "You got to get your shit and get over here," because Kurt just had to leave. He's got some kind of health scare. Thank God he was okay.
Yeah.
I go do 2 rehearsals, and Waddy was like, "Man, you sound better than ever. Got to get you back in here." But then I couldn't make 2 of the gigs on the tour. Yeah. And the guy she has now, Drew Hester, he's a friend of mine, and he got the gig because he produced Taylor Hawkins' like solo records, and Taylor was like, "Well, why don't you call, if you need a drummer, you should just call my friend." And that was the end of that. But the irony of it is, had that worked out, I wouldn't have been able to have done this thing with Beyonce and the Chicks. I wouldn't have played with Christine McVie and Lindsey Buckingham. So sometimes when things don't work out, you just gotta let it be and go like, yesterday I'm sitting here going, fuck, I don't have shit happening. I mean, I have a busy schedule because I have to, I have to survive.
Right.
But I'm sitting here and I'm not like I still pray the same way I did when I was a kid, but I wouldn't call myself a religious person. I know that it could be the back of my head or me talking to myself. I don't know. Or it could be me putting it out in the universe. And I heard it back yesterday. I heard, "Hey man, just be patient. I'm working on it."
Right on.
But you don't know when it's going to hit. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm just here at the Vons. I could, be like, "Oh yeah, hey, have you ever eaten these muffins or whatever?" And then it turns out the dude will be like, "Oh, I work with Elton John. You play drums. We need somebody." It's that, and that could happen in anywhere, man. And in Oklahoma City, I've got work that people were like, "How did you find that work here?" I'm like, "I don't know. There's some guy with an advertising firm saw me on a video with Ben Harper, and a guitar player there said, the guy lives in town, and next thing you know, I'm over there doing all their work."
Cool.
You gotta have faith. Like, but it's weird. When I was in Philly, when my dad was ill, I was there for 11 months. And I didn't do 1 gig. Nobody called. All I did was
I don't think anybody knew you were in town.
Maybe. I mean, my dad was like, go do a clinic at the school, and maybe you'll get some students. And I did. I got like a record number. Mark DiCianni offered me a staff position after my dad passed away. And then recently they shut the school down.
Yeah, good thing you didn't take that gig.
I'm like, but it's always been in the back of my head. Like I can call Mark D and get that job and maybe move back to Philly. Not anymore.
No.
Man, shit. Good thing I make a good meatball. I could open that.
Yeah, I think Freddie, did they
they
morph it into Temple? Aren't they like?
No, I mean they're having offers. All the teachers, like Kevin Hansen, is teaching it.
Right.
I forget the name in
Yeah.
Jersey.
Right.
But it's just sad. Man.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so bad.
shady,
I mean, Best Grown
shady.
was like, I wrote Best Grown and said, what happened? And he's like, man, call Mark D's. Like, but it just was like here today, and guess what? We're done.
Yeah. Oh, it happened so fast.
Yeah.
All those guys, man. There's a great drummer there named Joe Nero.
Oh, yeah.
Joe. And like he's got when my father passed away, I was like, man, Joe, just take these drums. It was a set of burnt orange set of Gretsch that I gave my dad, a bop set. And I'm like, keep that sound here in Philly, and like I used to love stopping in there and seeing all those guys,
Right.
We did the Chicks gig there. Natalie's son and her son's best friend Harry, that I call my nephew, they were like, they're like 15 and they're like, we need to find a place to jam. Like they just wanted to go shed. I said, come on. I took them to the U of Arts. I said, this is the room my dad used to teach. And my parents met at that fucking school.
Yeah. How's your mom? How's your mom?
She's okay, man. Thank you.
Good.
She's, it's a funny story that they met there. Because my mother was the first woman to get a scholarship to Berkeley.
Wow.
Wow.
And while she's at Berkeley, the way I heard the story was she was getting into the Kabbalah, and her parents thought it was a cult. So they took her out of there and put her in the school in Philly. And then she did the worst thing ever. She, married a goyim, married a Jewish man. And it's crazy though. The night I was born, like Stanley Clark and my mom were gonna jam, and like Stanley was driving around trying to borrow an E string for his upright because it was broken, and we borrow an E string, and he showed up, and my mom was like, she had driven from wherever in Jersey, I think it was, over to Philly, or maybe she was in Philly already, and she went into labor with me. So Stanley's always like, man, I've known you since the night you were born. And my mother is like,
that's crazy.
We were trying to get the letters for the word E string and like a string or something and give you a name. It was, like based on the E string, but man, it's nuts, man. This fucking life is it's crazy, man. Like
crazy.
Jim, I gotta just I hate to interrupt, but you just kind of casually dropped it, and we got to go back a little bit because I mean, first of all, you've played with everybody. We don't have enough time to name everyone you've played with, but you could kind of just casually mention the Beyonce Chicks thing at the CMAs. I mean, that's you got to elaborate on that a little bit because that's talk about an event. To be a part of.
Well, the funny thing behind that is that Natalie is so crazy about that record Lemonade that she would, like hit you up, hey man, come on my bus, we're gonna watch Lemonade or whatever, right? It kind of went around the band, like who was in there hanging out, and we were playing this song called Daddy Lessons, which is a Beyonce tune, and within the band, I was like, I heard the track, it starts with the drums, and I was like, they're like, you need to come up with something that sounds like that, and I was like, I had used this suitcase and a garbage can on a lot of stuff with Ben Harper. And I'm like, I'm going to bring in this suitcase and a garbage can because when I'm shedding this stuff at home, this colonial snare sounds exactly like the beat on the record. So I bring it in and they light up like a Christmas tree and they're like, oh, that's great. But, and certain people in the organization would be like, oh, why are we playing that song? We could do another one of their songs. But I was like, well, we should just stick with this, let's keep doing it. And somehow, I mean, that was my feeling. I didn't have a say. Well, they could have changed it that night, whatever. But the song got to Beyonce somehow.
Wow.
And the way I heard the story was that Beyonce had wanted to be on the CMAs. And she got turned down like, you're not a country artist.
Yeah.
And it offended her. And they called to apologize. And she said, they asked her to perform. And she said, well, I'll do it. But you have to let me bring the Chicks. At the time, they were called the Dixie Chicks. Yeah. And they were supposedly banned from the thing. So they tell us like, we're going to do it, but it's not announced. You can't tell any of your friends, any of that. And I was like, okay, cool. And the way it went down was they called and said, bring your 2 guitar players and the drummer and tell the drummer to bring that weird drum set that he uses on it. So Mindy, the tour manager, calls me and says, hey, and I was living in LA, and she said, since it's just that little bit of stuff, do you need a tech that day, or can you just bring it over on your own? Do I have to set up cartage? And I go, no, I'll bring it over. She goes, great. She said, Keith and Justin will get here at 4:30, but if you could show up at 2 to set up, Beyonce's people are going to sound check and rehearse from 2:30 to 4, 4, and then 4:30 you guys hit. So I go, yeah, sure. And I show up and sound check it. The front of house guy's going like, man, that's like the best bass drum sound I've ever heard. And it's just cool. this old tweed suitcase, right?
Yeah.
And then I set it up and I go off to the side. Now, in walks Beyonce's band, which is part of it's this group from New York called Too Many Zoos. The Barry player and the guy that carries a bass drum. And then they got a washboard guy coming. There was like a whole horn section. There were so many people, a choir, a backing chorus, whatever. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to them rehearse, and they don't have anything. And the band leader's name was this guy named Derek Dixie. And somebody in the band goes, what are we going to do about the MPC thing, the sound, and Joy was there, who's Beyonce's drummer, and she's playing an SPD pad with 808 sounds. It just goes, boo, boo, right on the one. And Derek goes, well, you see that guy sitting over there? He goes, when he plays that suitcase in that garbage can there, it sounds just like our record. He goes, matter of fact, Jimmy, I know the guys aren't coming for a while, but if you don't mind, you can start rehearsing with us now. And I go, yeah, great, man. And I'm like, and I'm also thinking, like, don't drop a stick, like, keep it cool, first impression with this, and it's 4 bars of drums up front alone. Right. And the harmonica drops in with it. And I'm going, okay, well, he goes, go ahead, man. And I started, and the whole room starts dancing. Get out. And everybody's like tripping, and we get done to one pass, and they're looking at this. Everybody's walking over. I can't believe that's a drum set. It's weird. That drum set had the same effect on Pharrell. He came up to me at another gig and was like, man, that is the Dilla sound. And I go, and I don't know why, but out of my mouth comes, yeah, man, it definitely is. And he goes, hats off to you, bro. I go, thanks. He turns around and goes, no, man, really, hats off to you. And then his guitar player's calling me, going, yeah, he's going, what the fuck? Pharrell's freaking out about your drum sound.
Wow, that's cool.
So, and it was the same with the Beyonce thing, man. And dig this. I mean, in closing about that, it's one song. It's one song, man. We rehearsed it 7 days or something. Probably 8 to 10. And I'm not exaggerating when I say 8 to 10 hours a day. Wow. We'd be done, and he'd go, let's do it 3 more times. And then we get to the CMAs, and we're the only group that is 100% live. Like, there is no, and we recorded it on the way out the door, which became like a single. But we're the only group on the CMAs that, the CMAs, they were recording the bands at soundcheck, and then the vocals would be live over it. Our thing was 100% live, unannounced. Wow. And when they're like, and welcome to the stage, Beyonce with the Dixie Chicks. The looks on the faces, man. Some of them people in there, man, got, they got their stick up their ass about they don't like certain shit. And it's like, man, it felt good to get up there and just be like, sure. Hey, this is fucking YouTube. Yeah. And it was 100% live, and we had rehearsed it so much that it was sort of just like automatic, It's on YouTube. If you blink, you won't see me. But it's fucking really good, man.
Jimmy, you're kind of hard to miss. Anytime you're doing a gig, you got this thing, man. It's like the camera loves you, and it just it's hard to miss. Like, I don't know how many different times. That's Jimmy up there, So
thank you.
It's cool.
A friend of mine said to me, he goes, man, because I've considered sooner or later, I'm going to have to cut off my hair because it just goes further and further back. And it was a 4-head, now it's a 12-head. Yeah. I'll be in there with this spray toupee shit and this dry shampoo and a headband. If it's a big setting, I can get away with it. But my buddy goes, yeah, well, it's something to consider. He goes, I've never walked into a gig and went, is that Jimmy on stage? He goes, when you walk in and you're there, you go, oh, that's him. Yeah. And it's cool, man. I can't complain. It's, these things all happen like this. Like I'm saying, this is the weirdest year. Like every 10 years, I used to be like, okay, I just made it through 10 years. Yeah. God give me, another 10 years of this. And it got to another 10 years. And, now for the first time in 20 years, like a year without like a big tour, it's humbling in a sense, but like to not walk out there and have that thing, like you still have to find a way to value yourself.
I get it. I mean, I think next year we're going out. We've been going out every year. We go to Europe, and this year we're going out. And I don't think, because the World Cup is in 2026, I don't think we're going to go out. But we're all like, I mean, if we go out that year, I'll be 70. I'll be 71. And then,
wow, no
we
shit.
Go out. Well, I turned 69.
Great, man.
Thank you. But I'm turning 69 in February, and I do my tour, and then and I've been thinking about like, what would it be like? I mean, I always got stuff I'm doing outside of it, but like you said, it's like getting on that plane or getting on that bus and then just going on the road and having your texts and have you think you're used to.
It all matters.
Catering, you know what I mean? It's weird.
It's
the
so
soup at catering, you get used to it, and I mean, somehow I've been thinking about what is it going to be like not having that.
Man, dude, let me tell you something, man. I used to coming up, you guys would play at like Reds or something. It was the Ivory back then. And then my band, I worked at the Sound Odyssey in the Shore Mall. And if we sold one of your cassettes, man, we'd give them that poster with it,
Oh, yeah.
And my band used to cover your tunes because we were a local band, but everybody wanted to hear Hooters tunes. And I tell people that all the time.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I saw you play at Live Aid, and I was like, fucking hey, man. I was like a teenager, and I was out there in the front, and
thanks, Jimmy.
I was right on. I mean, I remember where I was in this tower. I've even looked with a photo loop in the Live Aid book and spotted myself.
I'm gonna have to do that.
You came out, man. You guys came out, and even the announcer was like, "And coming up now, I think like Joan Baez did some kind of introduction." He goes, "A band, the Hooters," as if he didn't know who the band was. The guy on the when I saw the replay on TV, But you guys walked out, and I was like, "Holy shit, man!" Like wow, and it was such a heavy thing. There was my neighbors on my street in Ocean City. Was a Philly band, an Ocean City band called the Red Tones. You remember them?
Yeah.
They played Joe McGinnis was like my neighbor, and I used to hear them practice, and that was like always when you guys played, that was like the talk, oh man, the Hooters played, and that shit, man, dude, seriously, like the grooves on that stuff, like I still listen to that Amore record.
I love that record
all the fucking time, man. Man, I probably could tell you the sequence of it if I thought hard enough on it. Fighting on the same side as a motherfucker.
Birdman.
What the hell? I got to lose 10 pounds of the 22 I lost. 10 came back. But that was on my listening on my walks. I would walk 5 miles a day.
I think I remember you telling me that.
Man, it means so much, man, to our region, dude. I mean, and you mentioned Robert Hazard, Robert Hazard, the fucking what was it, Tommy Conwell, the Young Rumblers,
and Freddie.
Remember the A's?
Sure. I had dinner. That's who I had dinner with. On Saturday night, I had Kenny Bernard, who was the drummer in Robert Hazard's band, and Richard Bush from the A's, the lead singer. We get together maybe 4 times a year, have dinner with our wives,
man.
And it was really nice, man. Catch up.
Jimmy, Dave still plays with all those guys in the pocket. He still plays with Richard Bush and Tom and guys from Robert Hazard's band.
There, man.
Jimmy, you do.
You know Scott Sachs?
I do.
Yeah, sure.
I do.
So I recorded with Scott and his then girlfriend Sharon Little on that first record she did in their house.
Yeah. Which
might be in Ardmore for all I know, but
it is.
I remember him saying that he had this thing happening at that what's it called, that milk boy. Yep. And he's like, yeah, we got this. I'm playing over there, but I do miss it back there, man. I got to figure out a way to be many different places.
Yeah,
man. I mean, I'm like, if I'm back there, you're either gonna see me at like Mac and Manco's, which is what now, Manco and Manco.
Yeah,
And,
right.
or I'll be in Corson's Inlet. If the tide is high and you don't
Yeah.
know where I'm at, you
Yeah.
can probably go down the Corson's
Yeah.
Inlet and find
Yeah.
me there.
Well,
or
we
I'll be
got
fishing for kingfish at low tide,
Yeah.
at the beach. Like
Yeah.
I miss it so much, man. I think it keeps me young. Like internally, I'm still that kid that was like, fucking playing in Wildwood at 16.
Oh, dude, that's why we love. That's why we love you so much, man. It's like
thanks, man.
you just listen to you talk about your passion for music and just how you describe your experiences are just it's remarkable, man. It's so cool, man. And you haven't lost that love and fascination for but the surprises in music and the weird shit that weird shit happens when you get together with music, like weird, cool stuff like meeting different people, and then even just the experiences, man, are just. I mean, that's the shit.
Thank you. I mean, it's heavy because every day is like you don't know what's coming next. It could be like the phone could ring and it could be anybody. It's funny because when I first left Jersey, I may have told you this before, but there was a guy I was playing at this bar called Noah's Barefoot Bar in Diamond Beach in the end of Wildwood. Over by the, I think it was called the Playpen or something. It was a big joint. Yeah, Playpen. And the Barefoot Bar was open from like 4 till 7.
Yeah.
And it was out like on the beach. And the band I was playing with two identical twin sisters and their brother. They were called the Trips. It was Lenny and Sam and Debbie and Len Finelli was their names, right? Yeah. They got fired. And then their next gig was in a casino, and they let me go because I was 16 and they were worried that the ABC would shut me down.
Yeah.
And the bartender goes, "Man, don't worry about it. See that guy over there? He wants to talk to you." And it's this Wildwood guy named Billy Jack, and he was taking our place. And I had heard all about him playing guitar and getting on top of the bar and all this shit. He goes, "Hey kid, I heard they let you go." And I go, "Yeah, they did, man." And he goes, "Biggest mistake they ever made. You want to work with me?" And I go, "Man, I'd love to work with you." He goes, "Well, I'll tell you what." He goes, "Sometimes we do 2 gigs in a day. Whatever." He's like, "Just stick with me. I'll guarantee you $1,000 a week," is what he said.
Wow, cool.
It might come out of tips, it might come out of gigs, but we're gonna work a lot. And if you're willing to just hang with me and play, I can tell you that I'll give you that in the season. I go, "Great." And we shake on it, and I go tell my dad. My dad goes, "Man, Jim, go back and tell him you can't do it." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Well, tell him." I said, "Okay." I always would say yes before asking my dad why. And okay, man. So why? He goes, "Well, man, I want you to get out of here." He goes, "Tell him your old man's buying you a ticket to LA." He goes, "Because I want you to, you could always come back here and do that or whatever." So I tell the guy. Cut to like 20, 30 years later, I find the guy on like Facebook or one of them, might have been MySpace or something. I write him. I go, "Hey, man, I don't know if you remember me. Did it in '86 the summer and you offered me the job, He goes, "Oh, yeah." He writes me back. He goes, "I remember you, man." He goes, "Once this social media thing started, I remembered your name and I decided to follow you." He goes, "I'm really proud." He goes, "And I got to tell you, man, if you're still interested, the offer still stands."
Well, let me check with Stevie Nicks and the Chicks to see if I'm free, right? Jimmy, I hate to do this. I'm the bad guy here, but Rich is going to be yelling at me any minute that we got to wrap up like in the next 30 seconds.
Hey,
that's how that. I mean, you were amazing, Jimmy. We love having you on there.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to have a session number 3. We'll have you back, Jimmy. It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah,
you're just
Jimmy, thanks so much. And to the 3 of you guys, a couple days late, but happy National Drummers Day too.
Yeah, well, thank you, Andy. Thank you. Giving you guys all a big hug.
Yeah, National Drummers Day. Come on, motherfuckers, give it up.
So Jimmy,
Let's go.
Jimmy, when you're back in Philly, we got to figure a way. We'll have to go to Ralph's. We'll all have to get together and go. Okay.
And if you guys want to come, I live out in near the Jersey Shore. You want to come over for some? We'll pick some Jersey tomatoes too.
And we'll go fishing.
Hey man,
thanks so much, Jimmy.
Make sure that the next time I'm there, I got like 3 or 4 days to just to be there. All right, I know you got to go.
Love you, man.
Later.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you too.
Steve,
Thank you.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you so much to the great Jimmy Paxson.
Yeah.
For Dave and Fred, I'm Andy. We'll see you next time on In the Pocket.
Later, yo.
Thank you, man.
Dave
Beautiful.
Uosikkinen in the Pocket is sponsored by the School of Rock Main Line. I'd like to thank the School of Rock Main Line, located at 511 Old Lancaster Road in Berwyn. You can visit their website at schoolofrock.com. Ask for Dave Marsh or Rick Allison.